So there's this notion that Latino people are not original.
The Bible says that Christ only died for Israel.
Blanqueamiento, la cultura de mejorando la raza.
We could do this all night. As we can see, these are the people.
So the northern half of Mexico is straight white people.
There's plenty of white Latinos who actually have no mixture of indigenous.
The dominant ancestry for the Hispanic Y chromosome is Hispano-Roman ancestry.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up out of your sleep, 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 sleep.
The awakening has caused the Black Hebrew Israelite movement to grow a lot faster since 2013, as I've covered in recent presentations, and while I know traditional Black Hebrew Israelites would disagree with half the content on this channel, I'm actually a supporter of their movement. When I say traditional Black Hebrew Israelites, though, I'm referring to the ones who are a part of the organized camps, from Sicarii to the IUIC to the ISUPK, etc. And one thing many of them believe in is what's called the 12 Tribes Chart. The 12 Tribes Chart is a list of all 12 tribes of Israel that identifies each one with a specific ethnic group in the Americas. Here's one of many graphics rendering this list. Judah, the tribe of Jesus, is listed as American blacks. Benjamin, the smallest tribe, is apparently West Indians. Levi, the shaman of our administrative complex, that's the Haitians. Ephraim, the largest clan, is just Puerto Ricans. I would have switched Ephraim with Benjamin, honestly, if we're even gonna try to make this logical, but whatever. Anyway, you get the gist. Here's my thesis. This chart is arbitrary and anthropologically infeasible because it A, requires the Americas to be uninhabited when Israelites arrive, B, ignores human nature when it comes to our propensity to mix with other groups, and C, assumes tribal pedigree won't change. We need to break all those points down because this is the same faulty logic that stops Black Hebrew Israelites from accepting the fact that Black Americans are indigenous to the Americas. Now, last year I did a whole presentation mapping the exact route that 4 tribes took to get out of Assyria and into America. And I provided tons of source material to back up how we could know each part of that journey. Very basically, there were certain incursions into Assyrian lands that the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh took advantage of to escape due north, and we know they had Labim with them. They took the steppe route into Arsareth, which we have good reason to believe is not America but actually Siberia, and through Siberia they traveled a 1.5 year distance to reach North America by joining a back and forth migration pipeline that already existed in the Bering Strait. This isn't the only way they did it, but it's almost definitely how those 4 tribes did it. Now, we know from Syrian monuments and Egyptian monuments with king lists and recorded conquests that this was happening during the Babylonian captivity of Judah, so 500s BCE. But there are loads of pyramids, mounds, and earthworks in the Americas that are way older than that. So that means American Indians were already here before Israelites arrived. Israelites joined the Amerindian populations in late antiquity, but we steadily flooded in from both the north and the south. Look for an upcoming presentation on the Southern Pipeline soon. But we also know that the 4 tribes who paddled across the Bering Strait had to have mixed together both before and after leaving Syria because the Assyrians didn't consult them about which Yatsarli tribes they were from and draw tribal districting to keep them organized in their clans. No, they threw them all in the same cluster of towns, and that was it. So how could Raubain or God still be distinct tribes after all that? It's impossible. This idea is so irrational that I feel like someone would have to have a reason why they want this tribe, or this chart, I should say, to be real. To figure out what that reason might be, I recommend counting how many of the tribes on this chart are Hispanic. Starting from the bottom, we've got 3 in a row: Naphtali, Issachar, and Asher. They're all Latino, Argentinians and Chileans, and then Mexicans, and then Colombians and Uruguayans. None of these people identify as black. Then we have 2 Native American tribes in a row. They don't identify as black either. But then we have 4 Latino tribes in a row again: Central Americans, Dominicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans. In total, we have 7 Latino tribes plus 2 Native American tribes, which is basically just more Latino tribes. So that's 9 Latino tribes out of a max of 12. The term Black Hebrew Israelites is apparently a misnomer.
Unahia's new series drops receipts you don't want to miss. This time, the Loa goes mining for copper again, but she ends up striking gold. We going into the jungle for this one.
What's crazy about this one, I think, is how she shows one of the last tribes to get conquered by white people. They kept to themselves long enough for modern photography to capture their evolution from being black to being Hispanic. And that's a receipt I think we all need to have in our back pocket for whenever they tell you we're not Indians.
Get exclusive access to all new episodes of the Copper Mining series by joining Unahia as a Red Stick stakeholder. Stakeholder memberships support the campaign for federal recognition of foundational Black Americans as American Indians. Click the link in the description box to start binge watching the Copper Mining series today.
On April 10th of this year, a Black Hebrew Israelite known as Gorilla Hebrew did a reaction video to the Whited Out docuseries produced by Watchman Reports, now known as Online Ministries. Watchman's wife, Deborah Yab, was simply making the point that indigenous Americans were originally black, but that they have been whited out. When you see Gorilla Hebrew, you'll understand why this offends him. I'd like to expound with my own reaction to his reaction to that documentary, and yes, I realize how meta this is.
Olmec heads of what the original inhabitants looked like. The Olmec heads are irrefutable proof that the people of the region had the features of so-called black people.
So they're already starting off with pseudo information, right? So there's this notion that that Latino people are not original to, are not from, are not the original people of this place, and there's some type of amalgamation of sorts because of the Olmec heads, right? It's undeniable proof, they say. Well, let's just take a look. Let's investigate that, can we? Shall we? So there's an Olmec head next to the legendary Idi Amin, right? African dictator, right? Notice the striking resemblance. Look the same, right? Same guy. Let's go to the next slide. He looked the same too, though. Wait a minute. He looked the damn exact same too. I'm confused. See, you people are so, our people are so color struck, man. And that's because the so-called white man has went around the earth and called everybody a color. Right? When he's just not brown and everyone else just is brown. It just, that's actually what's going on. But he's got everybody thinking in color. But this, if we take a look at those two stone structures, that guy is identical to that stone the same way the African general is identical to that stone. See that? So no, that's not undeniable proof of a damn thing. Right? Here's another one. We got more. It's more. And more. We could do this all night. As we can see, these are the people of, Mexico and Central America, looking exactly like the stones that were built in the regions in which they live. So it's not undeniable proof. But Genesis 30, and I'm going to start at verse 31, and it says, "And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do me this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats." Right? So this is Jacob's flock. The speckled cattle, the spotted cattle, the brown cattle. This is a symbol that Jacob's flock, Jacob's people, were going to have diversities in physical appearance. Right? You see how the mother is mostly light with spots of brown, but the baby is all brown. Right? This ain't nothing but our people. You go in Black and Hispanic households, Native Indian households, all over North, Central, and South America, you're going to see that. Somebody light skinned, somebody dark skinned. Right? All kind of, you go to our family reunions, you're going to see all kind of diversity. Why are we acting like that's not a real thing here?
First thing to address is the fact that he's Hispanic, yet he's the leader of Sicarii. In his video, he refers to being Latino as the same as being light-skinned, which is where the problem is. A light-skinned black man may be light because of mixture several generations back in the bloodline, but his blood is fundamentally Negroid. He just happened to express a recessive trait, which is random. Hispanics are multi-generationally mixed people. It's often the case that they genuinely don't have that much Negro blood, although there are frequent exceptions to this, obviously. Side note, I can't find a version of the 12 tribes chart that has Dan on it, which is hilarious to me because I guess it goes by the 144,000 list in Revelation, which Christians do everything they can to avoid admitting is almost definitely just a mistake. The author forgot that Ephraim and Manasseh are two clans of the same tribe, and he left out Dan, which led Black Hebrew Israelite organizations to rationalize omitting Dan from the chart, because apparently that whole tribe is just irredeemable for reasons so unremarkable that no one thought to make those reasons clear. Anyway, I wanted to elaborate on this further because Guerrilla Hebrew implies Latinos are largely indigenous to the land, and we need to parse that. Woke Latinx people, or Los Latinos Progres, tend to identify as Los Indians. For those who know Ricardo Ignacio, he's a prime example on social media. The problem is, they're typically unaware of the fact that Indians were black. So when we look at the Bonampak murals and see Maya depicting themselves as black people with dreadlocks, that's a foreign concept to most Latinos. I just did a whole presentation with Hiloha Naniwaya about how the Mayan Empire established settlements from Louisiana to Florida with a major population in Georgia. In that video, Hiloha showed you the Bonampak murals so that we could squash any questions about the Mayan phenotype. The pre-Columbian Maya in the 8th century depicted themselves in vivid detail as very dark-skinned people with dreadlocks. And Hiloha made the point that none of them looked even remotely similar to Latinos or Native Americans. So when Gorilla Hebrew shows us a Latino who has Negroid features but with straight hair and possibly light complexion, it's disingenuous not to include the fact that this Latino phenotype is a product of Spanish conquistadors mixing with the Nahua, the Maya, the Zapotec, the Totonac, and so on. Let's see how rapidly I can summarize the Spanish ethnic groups of the conquistadors, because we need to identify who they are and then figure out how much of Latino blood comes from them.
So Bianca said, white passing Latina still has some indigenous. That is not true always. That is a misconception. There's plenty of white Latinos who actually have no mixture of indigenous. They are purely European descent. Don't make the mistake. That is very problematic, and that contributes to the erasure of people and also contributing to white folks stealing. True. That is not a true statement. That's very false. There's plenty of Latinos that are white presenting in Latin America that have no mixture of indigeneity. They're literally just 100% European.
Guys, what we're about to talk about is a game changer. In short, Unahia is a small team of highly capable individuals trying to lobby Congress for federal recognition of Black Americans as pre-Columbian American Indians. I'm one of them. I'm the public information officer, so I'm out front recruiting and providing information. I'm also handling PR because of my background in print journalism. Right now, we're focused on a well-planned lobbying campaign to get the Negro recognized as the American Indian, and our campaign strategy hinges on exploiting a quasi-legal precedent in an amendment proposal for a dormant Senate resolution that already exists. I want to appeal to everyone watching this video to support the campaign by joining Unahia. And guess what? You don't even have to know a single thing about politics or history. Just help us build our list of demands and help each other use Unahia's genealogy tools to identify your ancestral tribes. Vote yes or no on the hundreds of decisions we have to make. Participate in our tribal town hall meetings after every new moon. Look, I'm not asking for super chats or any other donations to my own pocket. If you've got any spare change, use it to become a stakeholder in Unahia, which can be done for as little as $7. You can opt into stakeholder leadership for about $20 if you've got the budget for it, which gives you greater voting power on the decisions we make as a tribe. Believe it or not, it only takes 5 minutes to help us reclassify ourselves as Indians. Let's go! So Dr. Anastasia Kalyuta, senior researcher at the St. Petersburg Institute of History, says that, quote, in terms of regional distribution, 30% of Cortez's men were from Andalusia, the southwestern Spanish province where the majority of the population were descendants of Muslims and Jews forcibly converted to Christianity, unable to boast the coveted purity of blood so important for making a career in Spain in the early 16th century. End quote. No purity of blood, right? Okay, so Hernán Cortés, infamous conquistador who led the expedition against the Aztec. Almost a third of his army were the crypto-Moors and Sephardic crypto-Jews of Andalusia, but in the 1500s, these converts were also heavily mixed with Roman ancestry, which is tied to what made them convert in the first place. Let's get a second opinion on that Andalusian population from Oxford Islamic Studies Online. Quote, the Catholic monarchs completed the reconquest by securing the surrender of Granada in 1492. Right? Significant year. Jews were expelled from Spain the same year, while forced conversion of Muslims followed in the first decade of the 16th century. By the early 17th century, these last crypto-Muslims or Moriscos were also expelled. Alright, so then skip a couple lines here and check this out. Arabs were originally a small minority, but those able to claim Arab lineage, an important marker of social prestige, rapidly increased as a result of intermarriage with the local Hispano-Roman population, as well as through patron-client relationships. End quote. Yeah, because Rome had colonized the Celts and indigenous Iberians in the first place, which resulted in the mixed Hispano-Roman population that Berbers, Moors, and Jews tossed around for several centuries before Rome clamped down on them with the power of the church. That's those Catholic monarchs it mentioned, which were Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabel of Castile. As soon as Granada surrenders, Christopher Columbus comes to America. Going back to Dr. Kalyuta, she says, quote, among the rest, 17% were natives of Leon, the northern province of Spain with a long tradition of anti-Muslim conflict. Only 15% of the conquistadors, including Cortés himself, were from the southwestern Spanish province of Extremadura, traditionally called the cradle of conquistadors. End quote. Okay, so the next biggest group is the Leonese people, who were actually just indigenous Europeans. And the third biggest were the true conquistadors, the Spaniards of Extremadura. Fordham University has a Center for Medieval Studies, which hosts a blurb on the Leonese people. It says, quote, during the Middle Ages, Leon was a kingdom that was independent from the surrounding areas that currently make up Spain. In 1230, it was joined to the Kingdom of Castile, which it remained a part of until 1296, end quote. And actually, Leonese spoke their own language, which is still alive today, and some Leonese people still speak it. They're a true pre-Castilian kingdom with some legitimate roots from ancient Tarshish. For those who are up on their biblical scholarship, that would be a Japhetic ethnic group. The true conquistadors of Extremadura were considered noble houses that had become poor due to Catholic oppression. These were Castilian Hispano-Romans like Hernán Cortés, plus some conversos. So some of whom were crypto-Jews and some were crypto-Muslims. Don't forget though, we already had a Hispano-Roman base to begin with. Now, the reason I just went through all this is because we just figured out who 62% of the conquistadors are, which is more than half. And I want more than half because of the Ichiti Indian principle of predominance. It is what it most is, or you are what you are most of. The makeup of the conquistadors was a foundation of white Hispano-Romans with a thick layer of original Tarshish plus dark Sephardic and Moorish minorities. The two thickest layers, making up 47%, really descend from Japheth here. And Ham and Shem split the remaining 15%. That's 62% of Cortez's army accounted for so far, and half of that 62% Roman from the Isles of Japhet. Dr. Kalyuta says, quote, as for the rest of Cortez's army, 12% were natives of Old Castile, the center of wars against Muslims since the 8th century, and 7% of his army came from New Castile, end quote. So here's the thing, Castilian is Hispano-Roman, so these numbers are only going to further pad the Roman blood quantum here. Old Castile would have a lot of Celtic and Visigoth admixture, but those are still both Japhetic or Japhetic ethnic groups. We can only estimate roughly, but we've now accounted for 81% of the conquistadors. Very conservatively, 12% added to the Hispano-Roman part, probably more. So the takeaway here is that conquistadors were at least 42% Roman, and more broadly, They were like 66% Japhetic. This mixed group is the father of the Latino. The predominant Y chromosome in Latin America comes from Japheth with minor Semitic and Hamitic admixtures. Mind you, the odds of the Sephardic Jewish component of that identity being any one specific tribe like Zebulun or Issachar are infinitesimally minuscule. But the key takeaway is that this is the father group of the Latino and the mother group is Aztec, Zapotec, Maya. Why are they the mother? Because Cortés brought only men. And we all know what the men did to the indigenous women when they got here. A study conducted by Brazilian researchers in 2013 says, quote, estimating the number of Europeans who entered Latin America is a complex undertaking. McAdoo, referring to immigrants to the United States, stated that the waves of persons who came to these shores are a portion of American history that is too often hidden away, for it embarrasses Americans. Hidden away. It embarrasses Americans. And the same statement can be applied to Latin America. Moreover, this migrant flux continued until relatively recently. The last wave occurred after World War II. And the origins of the migrants changed to include the entire Mediterranean region as well as other European countries, particularly those in Eastern Europe. End quote. So after white male colonizers forced themselves on Indians, there were subsequent waves of Europeans who came in and mixed with all the already mixed offspring after colonization. Here's a map from DNA Uncovered, which we do have to take with a grain of salt because it's based on haplogroup science, but with blood red being 90th percentile European, look at how European geneticists think Latin America is. So the northern half of Mexico is straight white people. Argentina's straight white people. Brazil's more than half white, yet we know black Brazilians hold a strong minority down there. Peru, southern Mexico, and the east coast of Nicaragua and Honduras are the only places with low European concentrations on the map. By the way, here's a portrait of Cortés. We have cause to believe it's accurate because the reference art for this one was sent by Cortés himself to an Italian historian named Paolo Giovio. This is roughly what Hispano-Romans looked like by the time we reach the 1500s. Slightly tanned white men. This is who Latinos resemble, not the Indian. I already showed you what the Indian looked like according to the Maya. The Bonampak murals are a primary source. Now, I'm not doing all this to discourage or diminish Latino support. In fact, Latino support may very well be the difference maker in the end. However, when we say Latinos and Native Americans are Israelites, we have to all reach a consensus about what's necessary to even be an Israelite. Being mixed with non-Israelite blood doesn't mean you're not an Israelite, but it depends on how mixed you are. Torah dictates in Devarim Eshrim Shalosh, Deuteronomy 23:2, quote, "A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of Yahweh." End quote. That word bastard is Mamzer, which is a half-blood Israelite whose mother is Ishagoyi, a Gentile woman. Strong's Concordance defines Mamzer as a mongrel, which is a dog of an unknown breed because it's mixed. Then it clarifies, born of a Jewish father and a heathen mother. So Mamzer Law says that if your mother isn't Israelite, you're not a part of the congregation. What is the congregation? That's kahel, which is a general word for assembly or gathering, but there are two kinds of kahel, atzara and edah. A bastard can't enter either one. Atzara is ritual gathering, solemn assembly, but edah means assembly of families, like when Yahweh explained the first Passover and told Moses in Exodus 12 verse 3, "Speak ye over the congregation of Israel." There was no ritual gathering going on at the moment. Yahweh just meant the edah, which is Haidah, the family of families. Address all the Israelites, he's saying. So if your mom's not Israelite, you're not part of the congregation. You're not in Haida. You're an outsider living among us. But you're not fully a foreigner, just outside the congregation. This is relevant to Guerrilla Hebrew's argument because he actually mentioned that Yatzarel is patriarchal.
They forced us into matriarchy. I want you to understand that we've been forced into matriarchy because the majority of the people that we come from in West Africa are patriarchal. Really, all of them are patriarchal, but some are matriarchal in inheritance, like the Ashanti, for example. Another topic. But we've been forced into matriarchy because, absentee fathers have become so prominent amongst our people.
So he's not wrong about our ancient ancestors being patriarchal, but to what extent were they patriarchal? Tribal pedigree was patrilineal, but ethnicity was matrilineal. Your tribe or great family was based on who your father was, but who your mother was determined whether or not you were in the family of families to begin with. To be Israelite, you need both. Your mother makes you Israelite and your father gives you a tribe. So many Hispanic Hebrew Israelites ironically ascribe to the teachings that matrilineal descent doesn't matter and that the seed of the father is what makes you Israelite by itself. And the reason that's ironic is because most Hispanics can only trace back to pre-Columbian Israelites in the Americas matrilineally.
Get exclusive access to all new episodes of the Copper Mining series by joining Unahia as a Red Stick stakeholder. Stakeholder memberships support the campaign for federal recognition of foundational Black Americans as American Indians. Click the link in the description box to start binge watching the Copper Mining series today.
So Obed was a bastard because his mother, Ruth, was a foreigner. Therefore, Mamzer Law dictates that Ruth's descendants would not enter the congregation even in 10 generations. But that's exactly why existence anointed David to become the big chief of chiefs in the Yatzarali tribal confederacy. Existence never wanted our ancestors to appoint a big chief because existence itself was supposed to be our big chief. But the elders gathered and held atzer with the sechel, an assembly with the chief shaman, and they overruled him in demanding that a big chief be anointed to rule over all chiefs. Existence characterized this as our ancestors partially rejecting the Great Spirit. So that's why when the Great Spirit chose our second big chief for us, the person chosen represented a partial rejection of Yatzarel. The first week of verses in 1 Samuel 8 show us this. Quote, "And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Yatzarel. Now the name of his firstborn was Yoel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Yatzarel gathered. All the elders of Yatzarel gathered themselves together, and came to Samuel into Samuel unto Ramah, because Samuel is the sachem, right? And said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. All the heathens, it should say, all the Gentiles. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto Yahweh, and Yahweh said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. End quote. So us wanting a king or big chief was partly a rejection of existence or nature. It was partly a rejection. I say partly because we weren't rejecting nature as being our spiritual center. In fact, the elders originally brought it up because the judges appointed by the sachem were corrupt. They were violating the law of nature. Those judges weren't in sync with the Great Spirit. However, we did reject existence as our immediate ruler. So that's a partial rejection. But the Great Spirit let us choose our own big chief the first time, which was Saul. Since Saul led our ancestors in opposition to the Great Spirit one too many times, the Great Spirit chose the next big chief for us, which was David. Choosing David was a partial rejection of Yatzarel because of our partial rejection of Yahweh. David was the third generation of a Mamzer, a bastard. And by law, a bastard can't enter Haida, not even to his 10th generation. Making a bastard the big chief over Haida was literally a 1/8 rejection of Yatzarel because David was 7/8 Yatzarali. The purpose of showing you this is to demonstrate the Ichiti principle of predominance that I mentioned earlier. You are what you are most of. David wouldn't have even been an option if he wasn't Yatzarali, but he was. To be Yatzarali is to be more than half Yatzarali by blood, more than 50%. Why? Because a Mamzer is someone with an Israelite father and a heathen mother, which is 50-50. David was 87.5%. So when it comes to Mexican bloodlines, these are mixed people mixing with each other, which greatly decelerates that reassembly. The climb back to Haida is gonna go slowly for them. They're not bastards. They probably range anywhere from 20 to 40% on average. And they're supposed to be climbing back up to the Mamzer line, which is 50%. Remember, a bastard is 50-50. But they're steeped in blanqueamiento, la cultura de mejorando la raza. Blanqueamiento is the pervasive social paradigm throughout Latin America whereby Hispanics actively seek to procreate with someone lighter than themselves so that their bloodline will improve its racial status. Whole documentaries have been done about just how universal this is, and because they crave proximity to whiteness and have been doing so for many generations, Latinos are the product of social selection slanted against Yatzarel, which only further increases the odds that a Latino is not Yatzarali. Social selection is a form of natural selection wherein the biological process gets skewed by a change in the criteria for choosing a mate or procreating. Blackness was stigmatized, and stigma is a social force. Ergo, Hispanics have socially selected whiteness, making it harder for Yatzarel to be redeemed in them, because that blood has been diminishing every time they favored the colonizer in their selections. That goes double for countries like Argentina, Brazil, Cuba, Uruguay, who went through periods of inviting Europeans to immigrate to their countries in huge numbers during the early 1900s. migrationpolicy.org says, quote, though less dominant, LAC migration, Latin American country migration, to Southern Europe, which includes Spain, Portugal, and Italy, reflects colonial and historical patterns, including mass European migration to Latin America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, end quote. So after slavery, after colonization, after the conquistadors. So think about it. As if Latinos didn't already have enough European blood, several countries imported more European blood en masse after colonization. So when Latinos today identify as the Indian, that's an unjust self-victimization, because in reality, Latinos are more colonizer than colonized. The Negro in them is the minority. As we already saw, the dominant ancestry for the Hispanic Y chromosome is Hispano-Roman ancestry. Blanqueamiento is bleaching the population. They've been taking in more and more white admixture even after colonization, which weakens the Afro-Indigenous components of their identity, the very parts that would have been Yatzarel. But even if this map is inaccurate, which I'm sure it is, the point is that Latinos may not be who you think they are. You think Latinos were colonized, but evidence suggests they're the colonizers.
They believe the gospel, they would believe that Christ didn't die for them.
That Christ didn't die for the Gentiles?
Right.
Lord, you are a great heretic.
For them.
No.
Yes.
You just said that he died.
I'm telling, me and you disagree on what the gospel is saying.
That's what the Bible says.
No, the Bible says that Christ only died for Israel. All right. You want to open it up to every other nation.
No. Jesus said, I lay my life down for my sheep.
If they believed, yes, the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
He said, no.
Yes.
Going closer. He said, the sheep are those who hear his voice and follow him.